Jordan?
Oh, and I'm still here, still fighting and going to court and all that kind of stuff, trying to get everything I own given back to me by the court, and it is not happening.
Mm,
The courts don't seem to care one way or the other because I'm not important enough.
yeah.
So anyway, I just keep fighting, see where it goes. But outside of that, I'm still here. I moved out of Los Angeles, so I'm not in California anymore.
Oh, no.
But I am, yeah, but I am in Pacific, still in Pacific time zone. I'm that close.
Mm.
So anyway, what else is happening?
Jordan Maxwell, welcome back for the fifth part of the interview.
Well, thank you very much. I didn't realize it was 5 shows we've done, 5 shows we're doing. Boy, that I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, just to remind you that this is a 7-part interview, just to be sure you know.
Okay. Okay, that's fine with me.
Jordan Maxwell, your field of expertise is symbolism. What
hmm
key symbols around us are important to know? And what are they trying to tell us exactly?
Well, there are many, obviously, many hundreds of symbols that the occult world uses, that mysticism uses, that religion uses. I mean, the Jews use the menorah. Christians use the cross. Uh, all kinds of symbolisms that are used in religions and of course in politics and in government. There's all so corporations use symbols. Everybody's using symbols and emblems, but for me, I deal in secret societies and fraternal orders and secret arrangements between nations that the people of the world do not know exist. And so I'm very interested in organized crime, criminal syndicates and the symbols they use. The secret societies, criminal societies out of Europe and Asia and around the world. There are major international criminal operations going on, criminal societies which are raping the peoples of the world, lying to them, manipulating them, exploiting their ignorance, etc. But the most important symbol, I feel, after looking at this subject for over 60 years, I started, as I've told you before, I started looking at symbols and began to develop something that is referred to today as pattern recognition. I began at a very early age for some reason, I don't know why. I just began at a very early age seeing patterns in things what people would say, people would do, in advertisements and what the President of the United States would say, which is the same thing that somebody in big industry would say, the same words, the same terms. And so, some 60 years ago, I became interested in pattern recognition. And of course, now, after 60 years of looking at this, it's everywhere for me. I see patterns everywhere where banks are all using the same terms. Governments use the same terms that the banks use. Then when you see the same identical words and terms and symbols used by government and banks and insurance companies are the same symbols and words and terms used by churches and religion, and then seeing it around the world, all the connections behind the scenes. It finally dawned on me about 40 years ago that the whole world is filled with symbols and emblems, and it's not by chance. It's not by chance that governments operate behind the scenes with insurance companies, and insurance companies are the bosses of all banks. People in the world have no idea in the world that the insurance companies are the real movers and shakers in the banking world. And so banks, insurance companies, religions, governments, secret societies, that's the whole world of business. It's all a business. And the people at the top know how this thing works. They know all the dark secrets of the words and terms that people use around the world. You know, the different presidents of different countries, they know what they're talking about, and other presidents and other governments are listening. And so we hear it on the street. We hear what the president's saying, but we don't understand that there's a whole conversation going on among the elites right in front of us, and we don't even know what they're talking about. And we know that happens even today in families. Young children, young teenagers can be on the phone talking with other teenagers right in front of their mom and dad, right in front of their parents. And they're talking about selling drugs or other criminal things that they're doing or going to do. And the parents have no idea in the world what their kids are talking about because they're using, the language of kids. They're using their lingo, but they know what they're talking about. You don't. And so you can listen to your daughter or your son on the telephone, and you think it's just a bunch of chatter by a bunch of teenagers. No. They're talking about something you don't know. They've got terms and words that you don't understand. And so that's the way government is. That's the way insurance companies are, and police departments, and religions, and all the other institutions that men have made, all the other institutions that people over the thousands of years have built up. So that today there's a world of communication going on behind the scenes. And so that's what I've been looking at for some 60 years. And there's just an awful lot of important symbolism going on. But the single most important symbol of all, in my opinion, is a religious and political symbol, which is, in my opinion, the most important symbol the world has ever known. But you don't understand until I show it to you, until you actually see it, how it's being used by government, it's being used by religions and churches, it's being used by institutions of education, the police department, sheriff's department, government agencies, private investment companies. All over the world, this one symbol is being used by all kinds of institutions and government, religious operations, but the people don't see it. It's so well hidden, and yet once you know about it, I have people all over the world emailing me and calling me and telling me, Jordan, I see that symbol now everywhere, where before I never saw it at all until you told us about it. Now I see it in movies and television, in commercials, in the police department, in government, in religion, in churches, in synagogues. I see that one symbol everywhere. And most people, once you see it, and once you are aware of how pervasive it is everywhere, you still don't know what it means. And so the next step is to explain what it's talking about, what it means. So the symbol I'm talking about, and you will look for it everywhere, is a sunrise between two mountains. When you see a sun rising between two mountains, that is a very powerful occult sign and symbol, which goes back to the ancient, very, very ancient Egyptian religion, which incidentally was based on Hindu. So it goes back to an ancient Hindu, later an Egyptian religion based on Akhenaten, or the sun god. And so in ancient Egypt, there was a symbol of the sun with the spokes, the sunrise with the spokes of the rays, rising up behind two mountains. And it was all over Egypt, all over India and Africa, and all over the Middle East. And then, of course, with the coming of the Grecian Empire, the Greeks picked it up and were using it everywhere. Then the Romans picked it up, and the Roman Empire picked up that symbol of the sun rising between two mountains. And today, of course, it's all over the earth. You can't even find one little city in the middle of nowhere that doesn't have that symbol on the city hall or the county office or the sheriff's department or something. Everybody uses it. But nobody seems to understand what it really actually means. And so, again, the symbol is the sun rising between two mountains. And the sunrise period is a very important part of it, but usually is accompanied by two mountains. And so that goes back to, as I said, an ancient Egyptian symbol, which now gets into the most powerful secret societies in this world. The illuminated societies that came out of ancient Egypt with their priesthoods. And today we have huge religious movements around the world that have priesthoods. And all the religions and all the governments all use, and all commerce and business use the mountains, the two mountains with the sunrise in between them. Now I have two new videos. I have two new videos, just came out within about a week ago. I released them, that you can purchase now on my website, which is Jordan Maxwell Show. Jordan Maxwell Show is my website. There are other websites bearing my name, but they're not mine right now. I'm fighting in court to get them back, but they're not mine. But my website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. And when you go there, you will see on the right-hand side of the page a little banner that says Jordan Maxwell Videos. Click on that little banner, Videos, and you will see the two new videos I have. And one of them is called Cosmocrats. And in that video, it's over an hour long, in that video, Cosmocrats. The word Cosmocrats, crats simply means rulers, like Democrats and plutocrats. Well, crats means leaders, but cosmos means the world, like cosmocrats, and I mean cosmonauts, those who circle the world, so they're called cosmonauts. Well, cosmos is the world, crats are rulers. Therefore, my new video is called Cosmocrats are Rulers of This World. And I talk about that particular symbol, which is the single most important symbol of this world, period. And then I show how it is used from the ancient prehistoric world to India, to Africa, to Asia, to Egypt, then into the Grecian and Roman Empire, and how it is used today everywhere in the world, and especially in America and North America, and it's everywhere. But the point being is that this video is showing you not only how many places that same identical symbol are used, but what it actually means. I go back to the reference works in ancient Egypt and show you what that symbol represents. And basically boils down to this. That symbol represents a totalitarian fascist world rule, where there's going to be a government that will control the entire world of mankind, and it is based on the ancient sun god of ancient Egypt. Again, like I said, ancient Egypt got that whole idea of a sun god from Hindus, from India, but it was perfected in Egypt. And so today, that symbol symbolizes a secret society which is dominating the whole entire world. And that secret society symbol is, as I said, a sunrise between two mountains. And I can talk about this for hours on end, but you've got to see the video. You've got to see how it's used. and how pervasive its use is, and then see what it actually means when we go to the reference works and encyclopedias and dictionaries, etc., and boil down what does that symbol mean. So you will see it everywhere, and no matter what country you're in, look at your government symbols, your police symbols, colleges, universities, uh, private organizations. I don't care what it is, look for that symbol, a sunrise between two mountains. It's everywhere. So what it basically means is a symbol of a secret society that's come out of ancient Egypt. And it's the worship of the sun. It's sun worship, but it's also the symbol for a very powerful secret society that now is trying desperately to control and dominate the entire world. All peoples, races, creeds, and colors will live under this secret society that has been working for hundreds of years to dominate the world. Well, they finally got their symbol to dominate the world, but now it's up to, now the last part is to get us humans to agree to live under that symbol. And so I'm saying that unless you know about that symbol and unless you understand what it means and why it's on the police department and sheriffs and government and churches and banks and every place else, unless you understand what it means, then you will understand how pervasive it is, how big of a problem this really is. We human beings are facing an enemy which is so huge, so large, so well funded, so politically strong, that unless you understand how big this enemy is, you're never going to see how much trouble we are really in as human beings. I don't care what government you live under. I just don't care what your personal beliefs are or your political persuasion. Doesn't matter. No matter who you are being dominated by a far, far more powerful secret order, and it's basically what I call, and it's been used, that organization has been called in the past, and I use it because I think that the term is correct. The organization which seeks to dominate the world that uses this symbol is referred to as the World Revolutionary Movement. WRM, World Revolutionary Movement. The World Revolutionary Movement is combined with the Communist Party, with the Nazi Party, with the entire religious establishment throughout the world, from Zionism to Catholicism to Judaism to Islamic religion. All of these organizations and religions are under the domination of something called the World Revolutionary Movement. And so I see this as a war between a very powerful, intelligent, well-financed, extremely brilliant master plan to control the world on one side, and we human beings out there, trying to stay alive and living from one day to the next. We are confronting that and don't even know it. We don't know who the enemy is. We don't know what his symbols mean. We don't know who they are. And so we humans on the earth are all in the same boat. We're all in trouble because we don't understand how big this world movement is really all about, how big it is and what it's all about. It's frightening when you begin to see. And again, if you want the real details that you can sit and watch and understand, I have a video that's on my new website that you can order the video. And both of them, there are two videos, and that's basically part one and part two. You really need to get both to understand. And all the information is there. When you go on my website, you'll see Jordan Maxwell, JordanMaxwellVideos.com. Click on it and read about the two videos. It's got all the information, what it's about, what it's talking about, what the symbols are, and then you can order it if you want. So that's the most important symbol, in my opinion.
Gene, what is the purpose to put in our face these symbols that reveals their plans to conquer the world.
Uh, Look at being Canadian. Every time you see the maple leaf or the flag with the maple leaf or the Canadian symbol from Canada, you just naturally, as a Canadian, like anybody else in any other country, you naturally assume it's government. And if it's government, it represents the national government of the country you live in, then you're not going to question it. There's nothing for you to question. This is the federal government of the country. And this is the symbol that represents it. Well, if you don't like it, then say something. But this is the symbol that the government uses. So what I'm saying is that the people of this world are slowly but surely being propagandized into accepting that symbol. And as I said, the police departments use it, colleges and universities use it, the sheriff uses it, banks use it, police and military uses it. Everywhere in the world, people are using that symbol and not realizing that that is a symbol for a very powerful secret society. And so, eventually that's going to become so perverse. It is now. It prevails everywhere. But people just accept it without knowing what it means, without doing any research on who came up with that symbol. What does it mean? Where did it come from? And why is everybody on the earth using it? So I'm saying that it is used as a propaganda tool so that people see it all the time and don't even question it. And just like Americans, we see the American flag or the symbol for the coats of arms of the United States, which is on the back of the dollar bill, the eagle with that symbolism. We just assume that's government. That's our country. That's our government. We don't realize, no, there's something going on here. The eagle goes back to the Roman Empire and can be traced all the way back to the Sumerians. That's a very ancient symbol America uses, the eagle. You look at it, you will find all the ancient governments of the world have used the eagle. The eagle represents something. And then to have the arrows in one hand and the stripes and the stars above its head, all of these symbols are taken from things thousands of years ago that you don't even know anything about. And so when Americans look at that symbol on the dollar bill, which is the national seal for the United States of America, you say, wait a minute, we didn't just dream that up and put that as a symbol. No, that symbol's been around, and those parts of those symbols have been around for thousands and thousands of years. And so you need to go back and start doing some real dark homework on where did our governments really come from? And where do those symbols actually come from? And then start breaking down, where these things have originated and what they mean and what do they mean about you? What are they telling you about you in the country? And what part, you have no idea in the world what you are doing in the country. The country owns you. You have to abide by laws and regulations, stipulations and permits and all of that. Why? Because there's something else going on. And that's why there are different countries, and different countries have different symbols. So I'm just saying it's a real education to wake up, to look at the symbols on your money, look at the symbols on your mail, on your stamps, look at the symbolism that's used by corporations, by police departments, by religions and churches, and especially, that's my field, is religion and churches and synagogues are using symbols that you would not believe what they really mean. So this is what I've been trying to tell people for, some 60 years now. Look at these symbols. Go to an encyclopedia and look up and see what these things mean, what these symbols on your money actually mean. Who is actually, in fact, printing your money? Who decides how much your money is worth? who is actually, in point of fact, running your government. Because it's obviously not the people. The people just do whatever the government tells them to do, and that's it. Well, the government's made up of people. Well, who are the people who are deciding how you will live? Who are these people? Now, nobody knows their names. Nobody knows where they are. It's just somebody is writing books. They're called law books. And so the lawyers, and if you're going to be a lawyer, you have to go to college and read the law books and study law books. And so the lawyers go to college and they study the law books so they can come out and get a work permit. Now they can go to work and make money being a lawyer. But it never occurs to anybody to ask, wait a minute, why do lawyers have to have a license? Why is it that if you're going to be a minister in a church, you have to have a license? You've got to be licensed by the government to be a minister in a church. When you're talking about God and you're talking about spiritual things, you can talk all you want if you've got a license. If you don't have a license, you're in trouble. And so you can go to jail for that, talking about God. Nobody told you you have the license to do that. Well, you can go to jail too for talking about law in a court. If you're not a lawyer, you have no right to say anything. And so we know that lawyers have to have a license. Everybody's got to have a license to do something. You can't even get married without a license. So you have a license because the government is telling you it's okay for you if you get a license. If Caesar says it's okay for you to talk about God, well, that's fine. Now you can talk because you have a license. But if you don't have a license, you can go to jail. So you better keep your mouth shut. Why do lawyers have licenses? It's because they're using law books. Lawyers use law books. That's how they do make a living. They study the law and then they go in and represent you to the law. But who wrote those law books? Who were the authors of the law books that your lawyers use? Because whoever wrote those law books has the copyright on them. And therefore, if the lawyer is going to use that law book to make money in court, that book is copyrighted. And he cannot use that copyrighted material unless he pays a fine or a fee once a year. He's got to be licensed to use that. Well, the same thing in Hollywood. If you write a play or a movie script and the studios like it and they want to make a movie about it, they can't just go out and make a movie on it because you wrote a script. They got to come to you and your lawyer and got to pay you. And they need to get a license from you, hand signed by you and your attorney, that it's all right for them to use, and that they will pay you for that license to use your name and your work and your story to make a movie out of. Why? Because you own it. They don't own it, but they're going to make a movie out of it and make a lot of money. So they have to pay you up front and get your permission. The same thing with a lawyer. The lawyer is going to use a law book to make money, but he better pay the license fee and better be licensed by the court to use that law book. And therefore, he has to pay a license every year. So, that's the same thing if you get married. You got to get a license. Why? Because you can't just go out and get married anytime you want. What's wrong with you? Marriage is considered in international language, marriage is considered a business. It's a business, and that's why you have to have a license. And when I see you with some woman one night, and I tell you the next day, that girl you were out with last night, she's bad company. Bad company? And you say, mind your own business. Business? Company? And then I find out you're going to get married, and she's going to be your partner. What are you talking about? Business, company, partner? You're talking commerce. It's a business. And if you don't think it's a business, if your business don't work out, you're not going to God, you're going to court and bring your money and your house and your car because it's just a piece of business. So all I'm saying is you need to learn how the world really works. I mean, I could talk all night about this stuff, but it's very simple. You live in a world of commerce and business. Money makes the world go round. So that's the way life is. I don't care if you're talking about God or marriage, it don't matter. It's a business. So that's it.
Jordan Maxwell, have you ever go in the Vatican?
Yes, I took a tour which very few people ever get to take. I took a very special tour through the Vatican. I went in the back way. I didn't go in the front way like all the other tourists. I went around to the very back of the Vatican and went in the back way, and I was given a special tour of the Vatican. They wheeled me around in a wheelchair. And because at my age, I couldn't walk that distance, so they wheeled me around in a wheelchair, and I had a really incredible, well put together Vatican tour, and in which they rolled me around all the back rooms, all the storage rooms. I didn't get into the library. I doubt anybody could get into that thing, but I did have a really special tour. The young man who set it up for me did an incredible job and got me to go through the Vatican. I saw it all. Yeah, it's a fascinating place, boy, once you see what it really is and who's really running it.
Because in the Vatican, I never go there myself physically, but there is a lot of strange pieces of art, pagan art, that have nothing to do with Christianity. Have you seen something very wrong with all these piece of arts?
Yeah, that's an understatement. It's very wrong if you just know what you're looking at. Something that has always amazed me and bothered me, it's extraordinarily important, but nobody seems to know about it. When you're talking about the Vatican, then you're talking about the Catholic Church. I'm not talking about the Catholic people. I'm not talking about, my mother was a Catholic, my family were Catholics. I'm not condemning the people. I'm talking about the corporation, the company, the Vatican itself as a corporation, as an institution. I'm not talking about the people. But what has always bothered me is that something so obvious, so really in your face obvious, nobody sees it. And that is that the Pope is wearing what he's called a mitre. The Pope's mitre is that strange-looking hat the popes wear. Catholics all over the world see the Pope wearing that strange hat that we call the Pope's mitre and have no idea in the world why the Pope wears that particular strange hat. And the cardinals on occasions will wear the same kind of hat, that strange pointed hat that the Pope wears. And people all over the world who are Catholic, who are very sincere Christian Catholics, have no concept, no understanding at all what that headdress, that mitre that the Pope wears, what it means. And that's what's so extraordinary to me. When you find out what that hat represents, then it's, I don't even know, I don't have words in English to explain how atrocious this whole subject is. When you find out what that Pope's mitre represents. The Pope is wearing that strange hat that he wears, very large pointed hat. It's called a mitre, M-I-T-E-R, the Pope's mitre. It represents the God of the Catholic Church. It represents the divine presence of God over the Pope. The Pope is beneath the mitre. The mitre represents the God of the Catholic religion. And that God, all you have to do is go to an encyclopedia and look it up, go to a reference work, or go on the web and just type in the word for the God of the Catholic Church. Now, many people think the Catholic Church is worshiping Jesus, but in point of fact, no, that's not true. That's what you think it's doing. But that Pope's mitre does not represent Jesus. It represents the God of the Catholic Church, and that God's term, the name of that God is Dagon. D-A-G-O-N, Dagon. And to all Catholics and anybody interested, go to a library, go on the web, go to a reference work, get a book on religious symbols and look up the word. You can do it on the web very easily. Look up Dagon, D-A-G-O-N, Dagon. Dagon is the god of the Catholic Church. It was a fish god. It was a fish god that came out of the sea. And the ancient Phoenicians and Canaanites called him Anus, or Onis, O-N-E, Onis, O-N, Onis. But the Romans called him Dagon. Dagon and Onis is the same god. A god that came out of the ocean. It was a fish god. And it goes back to the ancient Phoenicians and Canaanites and Philistines were worshiping a pagan god from the ocean called Dagon. And it was a pagan god from the old ancient Phoenician Canaanites. Today, that Dagon worship is called the Roman Catholic Church. And it has nothing to do with any man called Jesus or any belief system called Christianity. It's the old Roman religion worship of Dagon, because in the ancient Roman Empire before Christianity, the ancient Romans, like the ancient Greeks and all the Babylonians and Sumerians and all the other ancient cultures in the ancient Middle East, all of those ancient cultures worship Dagon. And so today, it is still the worship of Dagon in the Roman Catholic Church. And that's why I am amazed how many people go to church or see the Pope and they're out there crying and shouting and jumping around for joy when they see the Pope come through. Everyone is like they're seeing Santa Claus or Elvis Presley. Everybody's jumping around, and it's such a holy occasion seeing the Holy Father, and never realize for a moment the Pope represents Dagon, D-A-G-O-N, Dagon, the fish god of the Phoenicians and the ancient Phoenician culture. The Philistines worshiped Dagon. The ancient peoples called him Anis or Dagon. Go in the dictionary and look it up, and you will see 3,000 to 5,000 years ago in the reference books, in the encyclopedias, look up Dagon, and you will see that, say, 5,000 years ago, the priests of Dagon were wearing the same identical hat that the Pope wears today. The same identical headdress, the same identical clothing. The words are identical. So Catholicism has nothing to do whatsoever with Christianity. It's merely a cover. It's merely a cover for the ancient Roman religion, and that's why today the word Catholic is a Latin word, Catholic, which simply means universal. Anything which is universal and all over the world at the same time is referred to in Latin as Catholic. Catholic is not the name of a religion, it's a word which means universal. So therefore, air is Catholic because air is everywhere. Water is Catholic because water is everywhere. Human beings, man and woman, are Catholic because their man and woman is all over the earth. Stupidity is called Catholic because stupidity is all over the world. So the point I'm making is that Catholic simply means universal, all over the world. And that's why 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire ruled all of the Mediterranean. It ruled most of Europe. Britannia, and today it rules America and Canada with an iron fist. So that's why we call the worship of Dagon the Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic means universal, and Rome is universal. It's all over the world. So the Roman Catholic religion is not Christian. It's the worship of the ancient Roman god Dagon, D-A-G-O-N. Go get the reference books and read for yourself.
Jordan Maxwell, recently Hollywood have adapted from a novel of Dan Brown, Inferno, with Tom Hanks. What do you think about Dan Brown? Because in his books, he plays with symbols and conspiracies.
Yes, well, my opinion, just my opinion, you're asking for my considered opinion. I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything, but you ask me, I'll tell you what I think. I think Dan Brown is a plagiarist. I don't think Dan Brown wrote anything. I think he's a liar and has stolen the whole story from the original people who did the original story that he got it from. And the way he got it from the original authors, there were 3 British authors in England who wrote the original story many, many years ago. And Dan Brown has somebody's or some secret society is promoting Dan Brown. There's no doubt in my mind. I've been looking at this kind of stuff for 60 years. I know what I'm talking about. Somebody has put Dan Brown, the story out and put his name on it so he could be the author. But he's not the author. The author of that whole story that Tom Hanks was in, those authors were 3 British authors back in the BBC in England many years ago. They wrote a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Get the book. It's everywhere. You can order it today. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And the 3 authors are Bajent, Lee, and Lincoln, 3 authors who worked for the BBC in England. And they wrote a television show, a documentary on the Holy Blood, Holy Grail. In other words, Jesus' blood was holy. And the cup of the Christ, when he gave the cup to drink from, was called the cup of the Grail. And so they were saying that the holy cup is connected to the holy blood of holy Jesus. Jesus is holy, and the blood and the cup were holy because of that. So the cup and the blood are called the Holy Blood, Holy Grail. So when you read that, it's the same identical story that Dan Brown talks about in his movie, which tells me Dan Brown didn't write anything. Dan Brown stole that story from Bajent, Lee, and Lincoln. And they went to court many years ago. Most people don't know that. Bajent, Lee, and Lincoln went to court to establish. They wrote that research. They wrote that story. And Dan Brown won in court. Why? Because he was being financed, organized, directed, and protected by a very powerful, dark, secret society. So that's why when I see Dan Brown, I think of him as nothing more than a front for a very powerful, dark, secret society operating in Europe that we don't know anything about. And they are the ones who gave him the money and promoted him and made sure that he looks like the big, great author of the movie, the Dan Brown. When in point of fact, I don't believe Dan Brown wrote anything. I think Bajent, Lee, and Lincoln were right when they sued because he stole the story from them. There's nothing of any legitimate value in Dan Brown or his story. It's nothing more than plagiarism in your face. So go back and get the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail by the 3 authors, Bajent, Lee, and Lincoln. Back in 1980 or 81, they wrote the story that Dan Brown makes into a movie. Dan Brown should be sued and chased out of town for plagiarizing and stealing other people's work. That's what I think of him. I don't have any respect for him whatsoever, and I don't have any respect for the secret societies and the bankers who financed him and financed the books so that he could put the book out, which lends credence now to the secret societies and what they're doing. They wanted that story out to promote themselves. I know what's going on. I've been looking at this subject for many years. So when it comes to Dan Brown and his book, I don't have any respect for him whatsoever. None. I think he's a liar and a plagiarizer, and the people who financed him and organized him and made the movie about him are equally as corrupt as he is. That's my feeling about Dan Brown. I don't like him, and I don't like anything he stands for. I prefer being honest and go back to the people who really wrote the book back in 1980, probably before Dan Brown was in high school. The real masters of this subject are Bajan Lee and Lincoln. Go back and get all of their books. They had about 7 books on this one subject. The very first one was Holy Blood, Holy Grail, but there's about 6 more fascinating books where they document all kinds of things about Jesus and the ancient Masonic orders and the Vatican and all the dark stuff going on in the Vatican. That's a whole story. So that's what I think about Dan Brown. Not much.
Once more, thank you for your presence to the show, and we will see you very soon for, I hope, the sixth part of the interview.
Yes, thank you, Peter and Pierre, and I appreciate being on the show with you. There's so much more to talk about, but go to my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and join my research society. It's a whole different website I've got on my original website, Jordan Maxwell Show. I've got a second website called Research Society, in which I'm uploading all of my research over the years, all the dark stuff that people don't know, that have never been told. It's a whole website. You can join it, and it's on my website. It's called Research Society, and you'll find a lot of stuff on there you've never heard before. And again, thank you for having me on.
Jordan Maxwell, it's always a great pleasure to listen to you. And I forgot to tell you a good year 2017.
I hope so.
And I hope United States with Donald Trump will not go so bad. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think it's a welcome change.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed that maybe nobody else has noticed is that the western part of the United States, from the Midwest all the way to the Pacific coast, all one half of America, was dying, quite literally dying, in a drought for 10 years. There was no rain, no snow, and the mountains. So can you imagine 100 million people, 100 million people with no water, no rain, which means there's no food, you can't grow crops, you can't take a shower, you have no water to drink, and you got millions of people with no water? That was frightening, the implications, and I was really very frightened about this, because I know, people take it for granted to go take a shower and drink water and fix your food with water and cook with water and all the things we use water. Well, but there is no water. There's no snow on the mountains. There's no rivers. Everything is dried up. And 2 weeks after Trump was finally elected for sure, all of a sudden the whole of the western United States is now flooding with snow everywhere. All the reservoirs are full of water. It's raining everywhere. And I say, thank God, if there's a God in heaven, thank God that 100 million people have been blessed by the universe with water. because without water, humans cannot live. And so after Trump was officially made president, the water came. Now we have plenty of water, we have snow in the mountains, and there's more coming, and so there's plenty of water. I don't know what you think about that, but I thought that was very interesting. One never knows why things happen, but I do know that there is a dynamics in the universe that God is in the picture somehow. I don't know what God is, but I know it's not on TV. But I do believe that there is a higher force in the universe, some kind of a strange, dark power in the universe that watches everything and causes things to happen. So I just thought that's interesting.
I, I don't say that I hate Donald Trump. I don't know the man, and uh, I gave him the chance to govern the United States. But there is lots of propaganda and lies from journalists, my God's sake,
Yes,
to
yes, yes,
destroy the
yes.
man. So,
Yeah. Yes, and the reason why is because America, let me explain to you very quickly why all of this is happening the way it is. Very simple, if you know. America has for the past, I would say at least the past 70 years, because I can only talk about 76 years. That's how long I've been here. But America has for the past 70 years that I know of been a Marxist-Leninist country. We are run by, and our educational institutions and our professors and schools and colleges and police departments, all of our agencies of government have been run by Marxist-Leninists, Soviet communists. So America has become a very Soviet communist, Marxist-Leninist, totalitarian, fascist police state all over the world. There's nothing free, America, the land of the free and home of the brave. No, there's nothing free or brave about America. We are a fascist police state. And that fascist police state is based on Soviet old school, Soviet Marxist communism. And so our country has become, born and raised under Soviet Marxist communism for the past 60 to 70 years. So what Trump is doing is he's getting rid of the old Soviet communist, Marxist-Leninist bullshit that has been destroying people around the world, bloodletting, violence, criminality in Washington, D.C., and is trying, very desperately, trying to clean up America, clean up its government, and clean up what's been going on for the past 70 years. And he's up against a huge battle because the enemies of America are well entrenched. They got the money, they got the television stations, the radio stations, and they are Marxist-Leninist thinking. This is the philosophy of the media. They are thinking and operating as Marxist-Leninist communists. And so he's trying to take away from the communist world, the Soviet communist world, and give America back to the American people, and give freedom and liberty and justice back to the American people. So obviously, all of the Marxist-Leninist, well-taught kids in school for the past 70 years, they don't know that. They have no idea in the world what he's trying to do. And so that's the bottom line. He's trying to return America back to the Americans.
yeah.
Go back to what America was supposed to be, a land of the free, home of the brave, with liberty and justice and honor and decency, instead of the Marxist-Leninist drug-running, alcoholism, wars and crap and fighting and bloodshed all over the world. That's what America really is, and he's trying to change that. So I don't vote for anybody. I'm amoral. I am apolitical. I don't care about politics, but I know what's going on. He's trying to reestablish America in a country that is crawling with Marxist, Leninist, Soviet communists, fascists, Nazis, all kinds of subversive organizations, international bankers who are paying for people to die. So he's up against a horrible organized crime which is dominating the world. So that's what's really happening. That's why people don't like him. He's trying to reestablish the United States of America the way it was supposed to be a long time ago. So that's why people hate him, because no more handouts, no more all this Marxist, Leninist, communist bull crap that we've been living with under the Marxist, Leninist government for the past 70 years, killing presidents, promoting alcoholism, drug addiction, violence, wars all over the world. America has become a very, very dark and evil place. And he's trying to clean up this dark, evil, satanic stuff that's been going on in America for 70 years or more. So I see what's going on. I didn't vote for anybody, but I see what's going on. I've been around for 75, 76 years now. I know what's happening and I know who's doing it. So that's why people are against Trump, because he's trying to reestablish the American society the way it used to be. And there's too many people in this country who don't want America to be free, and they want America to be in prisons. They want America on drugs so they can drug and rape this country. So that's why there's so much drugs and alcoholism going on in America, because there are people who want America drugged and drunk on alcohol and entertained with ball games and basketball and football and all the ball games, so that they don't know. The Americans will have never, ever suspect how they're being overthrown and their country being destroyed. Europe has got the same problem today. So I know what's going on. I know who these people are. And keep in mind, all communist countries, keeping this in mind, all communist countries are called democratic countries. The People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba. All communist countries are called democratic. Keep that in mind. Democrat means communism. Marxist, Leninist, Soviet communism. We call today Democrat. So today, all over America, we have Democrats who are nothing more than useful idiots and people who are following the Marxist-Leninist philosophy of the old Soviet Union and don't even know it, because they're too ignorant and too ill-informed and too full of beer watching their ball games to understand what the real tune is really all about. So it's a cultural war between free people fighting a terrible, terrible problem called democracy. America was never a democracy. It was a constitutional republic. So go back and do some homework on that, and you'll see why, why Trump is getting so much flack, because he's trying to reestablish America the way it was founded. So that's the name of that too.
Jordan Maxwell, thank you for this brilliant commentary, and see you next time for the sixth part of the interview.
Okay, thank you very much again, Pierre. Good night.
Bye.